So in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about what should you do if your practice is too boring and it's making you get frustrated with practicing and not want to practice. First of all, step number one, if you're bored with your practice, is you got to hit the freaking like button right now, okay? Hitting the like button will definitely make you get way less bored with your practice. Okay, but for real, let's talk about this. So this is something I hear all the time is, I've been practicing XYZ thing, whether it's the notes on the fretboard or it's learning a certain type of chord or even soloing itself. Before we get into some different ways that we can maximize how entertaining our practice is, how interesting it is, and how effective it is, I do want to clarify something really quick. At the end of the day, if you think that practicing is boring, I got some news for you. Too freaking bad. Okay? Guess what, guys? It doesn't matter what it is on the guitar, okay? You're gonna have to practice that thing many times before you get it to be actually usable in your playing. Whether it's memorizing the notes on the fretboard, whether it's memorizing your triads that are in the key of C, whether it's memorizing your triads that are in all keys all over the fretboard, it takes a certain number of repetitions of a piece of material for you to be able to actually memorize it. And guess what? That is intrinsically boring, okay? So most of the time, people think that something's boring because they're repeating the same thing over and over and over. And guess what? There is no shortcut, okay? There's ways to go from point A to point B in the fastest way possible, but at the end of the day, there is no shortcut. And those of you who can tolerate playing the same thing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times in a row, you're going to be the ones who are going to be more successful than the person who does something 2 times in a row, goes, I'm bored. I gotta do something else. I got a noodle on a backing track or whatever it is. Just go do the exact same thing you always do all the time. Which, by the way, of course, to me, that's more boring than anything, right? Is not making any progress in your playing, never learning anything new, and playing the same crap over and over, right? That's more boring than anything that you could ever possibly practice and get better at through repetition. Whenever I play something, a solo using arpeggios or whatever, even just my C major arpeggios, how many times do you think that I've practiced playing a C major arpeggios? To be able to rattle that off like that? Answer is that I freaking practice it a lot. I don't even know how many times I practice it. It's a lot, okay? And it's probably more than the number of times that you've practiced it, okay? So I just want to make that 100% clear, okay? You guys need to stop having such a freaking short attention span of, oh my God, I can only practice something for 5 minutes and then I'm bored and I gotta do something else. Okay. Now that my rant is over, I'll tell you how we can actually make our practice less boring and more fun, okay? And it's a pretty simple concept, okay? It is that you need to actually practice making music with the musical tools that you're learning, okay? So if you're learning a new scale, make some music with it, whether it's improv or whether it's actually like writing something out. Maybe some of you prefer that. Now, what's the best way to be musical with the things that you're practicing? Number one is that we need to add rhythm into the things that we're practicing. Or maybe you're actually practicing rhythm, and we'll get to that in a second, how we can make that more musical when we're practicing rhythm. But let's say actually we're practicing a thing from a video that I made exactly 2 weeks ago on drop 2 chords. So I did this whole drop 2 masterclass. If you want to learn how to play really cool chords, by the way, check that video out. You got to check it out right now. Not right now, actually, after this video is over. But anyway, if I'm practicing those kinds of things, I'm going to put on a drum track. This is the easiest way to start to be musical with the material that you're practicing. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a scale that you're using to solo or it's chords, put on a drum track. And now me personally, I use the digital audio workstation software Logic, and there's a whole entire like database of loops that are in Logic that you can use for practicing or of course writing and actually producing songs. But it's really cool because this is something else that keeps things interesting, is using different drum tracks, right? So a lot of times I'll try to pick like a more modern drum track like this one. So I'll pick an inversion of my drop 2 voicings from the video I was talking about and mess with them, and I'll play them up and down, and then maybe I'll try to come up with a chord progression that sounds cool with this drum track. Okay, so now I'll mess around with not just playing them in order. That's something like now all of a sudden I'm having way more fun, but guess what? There is still what I was talking about before. There is an element of repetition because I'm very clearly focusing on one piece of material that I'm using to make my music, right? Like I said, it's actually first inversion drop 2 voicings. Go check out that video I was talking about if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I was going, okay, I want to practice my drop 2 voicings in first inversion. So this is how I'm going to practice them. So I'm having an element of that repetition that I'm talking about you have to learn how to tolerate, but there's also something that's kind of changing all the time, right? So I can also change the drum track. I go, okay, I'm kind of bored of playing over that drum track. Let me put on more of like a jazz track instead, and let me play over that. Let's turn that up a little bit. Look, now I came up with like a little way to sort of make that chord sound funny by sliding it up. What if I start sliding all my chords? Can't really slide that one down. It's already at the bottom of the fretboard. But you get the idea. It's like you can always have something changing in your practice, whether it's playing over a different drum track or actually using your own creativity to make the practicing more interesting, right? A lot of times I find when people are too bored with their practicing too, they're just not freaking being creative enough. So you need to be creative, and you need to think of yourself like, I'm in the lab right now when I'm practicing something. You don't have to think like, oh, this is some kind of exercise or drill. No, this is a musical tool that I'm working on, and I'm integrating it into my tool set so that I can use it in the lab to make music. So you can also do this with your pentatonic scale or something simple like that, right? So you need to be able to play them up and down straightforward before you improvise with them, because it is going to be really hard to improvise with them. But as soon as you can do that, then you start to improvise with them. So I'll try playing them up and down like... first position. Now second. Now third. And when you're doing this, don't try to play them like all stepwise like that all the time, right? You gotta be able to mix things up, put in some interval skips. And then the last position. Both octaves. So that's pretty much the idea, is that you need to be able to be more creative yourself if you want to not be as bored while you're practicing. So first of all, you gotta tolerate some repetition in your practicing because it just takes that number of reps. I've practiced a billion times soloing in all those pentatonic positions, and that's why I can do it right now in a video and not completely screw it up because I've done it 500 gazillion times before. So there's an inherent boredom to that, but it's not exactly the same way every time. I might go find a backing track and learn that backing track really well that works over it. And you go, okay, I'm going to practice there. Let me try a new backing track. But sometimes you have to work on just one backing track. Same thing with learning songs. Sometimes you're learning a song that's really hard, and guess what? You got to practice the same song over and over and over and over for 2, 3, 4 months at a time. I've worked on solos before for like an entire year, okay, before I finally had to take a break on it. Like an example of that is I learned a solo from Giant Steps by John Coltrane. And don't ask me to play it right now. I have to go back and look at it again. I practiced that freaking solo literally for an entire year because it's that hard. Did I care? No, because I wanted to play the freaking solo, and that's the end of that. Of course, by the way, doing that kind of stuff is really great for your technique, and that's just going to make your playing better. All this stuff is going to make your playing better. So, to recap, just make sure that you're being more creative if you find yourself being too bored with your solos. So if you're someone who wants to master the guitar fretboard and learn every single one of the musical tools that you need to have success, whether it's soloing over any chord progression in any backing track or any song, or knowing how to play chords all over the fretboard, any chord that you want, make sure you head on over to Jamsville.com right now and pick up the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. If you don't know how to do all these things, then you absolutely need to get the course right now. And also, my cat here says to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and until next time, listen, learn, and jam.